Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everyone and welcome to Franchise Interviews. My name is Dr. Marty McDermott and I'm the president of Franchise Interviews. You know, over the last 8 years, Franchise Interviews weekly radio show has interviewed some amazing leaders in the world of franchising. And this October, Franchise Interviews is featuring Great Women Leaders in Franchising Month. Today you're going to get to hear our interview with Melanie Bergeron, the chair of Two Men and a Truck. And that's coming right up on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Franchise Interviews. For over 6 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Franchise Interviews. My name is Dr. Marty McDermott. I'm a marketing professor for Capital University and the president of Franchise Interviews. You know, over the last 8 years, Franchise Interviews weekly radio shows interviewed some amazing leaders in the world of franchising. And this October, Franchise Interviews is featuring Great Women Leaders in Franchising Month. Today you're going to get to hear our interview with Melanie Bergeron, the chair of Two Men and a Truck. And Melanie officially joined the family business in 1989 when she was awarded the first Two Men and a Truck franchise in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, Melanie was once asked about the topic of leadership, and she said, "As a leader, I've always wanted our team to hold the same values for customer service. One of our core values at Two Men and a Truck is something we call the Grandma Rule, which says, treat others the way you would like your grandmother treated. In other words, with patience, dignity, and respect." And let's go right to our interview with Melanie Bergeron, the chair of Two Men and a Truck. You have an interesting story. It's one of the reasons why, you know, we started the show, Melanie, is we've always found that there's, like, interesting stories behind franchisees and franchise stores. What were you doing before joining Two Men and a Truck?
I was a pharmaceutical sales rep in Atlanta, Georgia.
Which is
so
interesting.
Quite
you know, yeah, it is quite different. And it's funny, too, Melanie, because over time we've noticed a lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry turning to franchising. You know, you say, well, what's the relationship between the two, you know? And you were one of the, if my story is correct, I guess one of the first franchisees, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yep.
What was it about Two Men and a Truck at the time, you know, that you saw this potential, Melanie? Because we've spoken about, like, you know, like the great stories like Dave Thomas, you know, when he recognized the opportunity with, like, KFC. I think he was like the second franchisee to KFC. What was it about Two Men and a Truck that you realized it was this great opportunity?
I can give you a brief history about how I got involved and then how I got to the corporate headquarters. But I will say, okay, good. I think pharmaceutical sales reps, if they're attracted to franchising, I think it's because they're very process-driven, they're very training-driven, they're very brand-driven. I think they have really good time management skills. But for all those reasons, I could see why they would like franchising, and just to be in business on their own and putting their energy towards something that is theirs. So anyway, my history with Two Men and a Truck, my mom actually founded the business with my brothers, Brig and John Sorber, and they were 15 and 17 years old at the time. And she had this old 67 Ford pickup truck in our driveway. And this was the early 80s, and there was a recession going on then as well. And my mom said, why don't you take that pickup and haul trash for people and just make some spending money. And my mom was a single working mom at the time, and just looking for a way to make some extra income. So the boys started doing that, and sure enough, you know, people wanted them to haul trash for them. And my mom then said, every time you come home from one of your jobs, I want you to put a little money in this dish on the counter, and we have enough money, we'll place an ad in the paper. And so soon they did have enough money, and she put an ad in our local paper in Lansing, Michigan called the Wheeler Dealer, and the ad said, 2 men in a truck will move you. And she was just calling it what it was, because back in the early 80s, there was no brand advertising where you could go in the grocery store and buy things less expensively, because they were just in white boxes with black writing that said graham crackers, cereal, ice cream.
Right.
And that's where she got the idea, 2 men and a truck. So anyway, she knew that she couldn't move those households in the old 67 Ford pickup truck, so she went out and bought an old used bread delivery truck for $350, and that's the only personal money that she ever put into the business. But the truck had a lot of issues. The gas gauge didn't work. You know, it didn't have a ramp on the back for heavy items. And with time, my brothers made a good decision, and they decided to go on to college. So my mom hired 2 movers and really started a real moving business. And at the time, I lived in Atlanta. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. You know, I did the great job, the company car, the benefits, lived at my own. I felt like I had made it. Well, she kept calling me, encouraging me to start a 2 men in a truck moving business. I'm like, Mom, does it make any money? She's like, I'm not sure, but people seem to really need this service. So I thought, you know what, I'll just do it as a hobby, you know, on the side. So I went and bought an old used truck, and I had painted on the side 2 men in a truck. And but I had issues too. A year after I was in business, I realized I never had a license plate on the truck after a year.
Oh, my God.
So, and I didn't get in trouble, but I did get a plate, and we just knew so little less, you know, back then. And then if you want me to, I can continue, or...
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like segues into the history and the character of the organization as you're telling the story. You know, and these are always such wonderful stories, aren't they, Melanie? Like when you go back and you reflect on how the company started. I had no idea that that's how the name actually came about, because I was going to ask you, you know, how did you guys come up with the name? And it makes sense, doesn't it, now, as you're telling the story, you know? So it's just fascinating. Yeah, and maybe you could dive like deeper into, you know, the history of the company, you know, and how 2 Men in a Truck became so successful.
Sure. I will just ramble on, so just cut me off whenever you want. I'll just
no, this is great stuff.
I love it. So anyway, the logo, if your listeners know what that looks like, it's a sketch truck with a logo. My mom sketched that for my brothers on a napkin, and quite often people would comment, how clever that you had a child draw your logo. And they're like, oh, that was my mom. But if you look at the logo, looks like one of the stick men has more hair than the others. My brothers can tease which one is them. And it works well internationally because no one's driving the truck. Both stick men have their arms in the air, and there's no steering wheel. But it's worked really well for us. Okay, so I was in Atlanta. My mom's in Lansing, and she starts thinking, gosh, I wonder if I should franchise this thing because it's taking off really well in both places. And she was asked to sit on a panel discussion with a friend of hers at Lansing Community College, and this woman had a franchise business called the Pet Nanny. And the woman said to my mom, you know, Mary Ellen, you need to franchise your business. And my mom said, well, I don't think you can franchise moving people. And this lady said, oh, for heaven's sakes, Mary Ellen, all I do is babysit cats and dogs, and I franchise my business. You can too. So my mom started using her resources, you know, back then it was called the UFOC, now it's called the FDD, putting all that together and protecting our name. And anyway, she continued to work hard. And after a few years, I started getting homesick. So I wanted to move back to Michigan. So I sold my sold my 2 Men in a Truck business, and I quit my pharmaceutical sales job. I moved to the Detroit area. I got a new pharmaceutical sales job, and I started another 2 Men in a Truck. And after a few years, my mom called me, and she said, this is 1994 to be exact. She said, Melanie, I think I'm going to get into politics. And I was just wondering if you would take over the franchise company, 2 Men in a Truck. And at that point, she had 36 franchise locations, gross sales were $6 million.
Wow.
She was doing pretty good, and she was doing this all by herself.
Yeah.
And she said, there's one catch. I want you to take over, but I can't pay you anything because while the franchise businesses are making money, corporate headquarters is not making any money.
Right.
I thought, yuck. But I thought, I want to do this because each of my brothers had a franchise by that time. My mom had one. I had one. It was truly a family business, and I wanted to put all of my pharmaceutical sales skills and high energy into growing the family business. So I quit my pharmaceutical sales job, and I started commuting to Lansing from Detroit every day. And at the time, the office was in an old house, in the attic of a house. There was no office space, so I actually sat at a copy machine, for my first year as president of
That's
Two Men in a
amazing.
Truck. And then I'll tell you where the blessings just kept appearing at our door. I mean, amazing, amazing things continue to happen. I'm just so thankful to God for all of these things.
Yeah.
But as I sat there, I thought, why don't we have any money? We're not making any money. And another problem I realized, I understood moving, but I didn't understand the franchise business model. And any of your listeners out there know that franchising is a different business model than whatever service or product they're providing. It's two things. But I didn't get that, and this was before the Internet was used like it is today.
Right.
I wasn't aware of the IFA, the International Franchising Association. There weren't any books. There wasn't Amazon.com. I just didn't know how to research it.
Right.
Well, back then, our governor, Governor Engler, he was looking at businesses in Michigan that he could help. He wanted to create more jobs in Michigan because we're trying to get through that recession. So he chose Two Men in a Truck, and he offered us 1 year of free consulting services from Deloitte and Touche. And honestly, back then, I didn't even know what Deloitte and Touche was. But he matched us up with our consultant, and he was actually a partner out of Detroit with Deloitte and Touche, very high up. And I worked with him for every Tuesday for a year. His name was John Fulvanesi. And he taught me everything there was to know about franchising. And he said, Melanie, the reason you don't have money is you're not charging enough. He said, don't feel bad because women quite often don't charge enough for their products or services. So I drove to each of those 36 franchises. We couldn't afford to fly back then or anything. And I explained to them that our royalty was going to have to go up from 4% to 6%. And explained what they could expect in return, with services. And they were all very much on board with it. And things, I'm telling you, Marty, things just blossomed from there. We had more money. We could start hiring people. And today, we are very blessed. This year we'll gross over $260 million. We have over 200 franchises in the U.S. We're in the UK, Canada, Ireland. Our average franchisee grosses $1.3 million. These are numbers I can give you because they are in our Item 19 and our FDD. And the last couple numbers I'll give you, our top 25% of our franchisees gross $1.5 million and net 24%. But the thing, we're still privately held by my mom, Mary Ellen Sheets, my two brothers, Brigham John Sorber, myself. The thing we're most proud of is we really give back to the community. Collectively, we've given over $16 million back to charities. Our charity of choice is the American Cancer Society, and I love this because our franchisees vote on our charity of choice, and the American Cancer Society continues to win by a landslide every time. We give 10 cents from every move to that great charity, and there's several others that we're involved with. But when you're in business a long time, like we've been, I think a lot of it's leaving that legacy, helping others and giving back that gives you the drive to just keep wanting to be great. So that's our story.
What a great story! It's I got to tell you, as I said, I've been doing the show 6 years, and Lonnie Helgerson said, you have to have Melanie on your show because she has a story, and he's right. I mean, this has become one of my favorite stories in franchising. I mean, it's such an amazing story, and it seems like too, Melanie. I guess you being very grateful too. And the company now giving back, to society, and all these other charities out there, I think is fantastic, and it's important. I mean, what an amazing story. That's really incredible.
It's really important to give back, and one new program we've started, we've had it for about 2 years. It's called Movers for Moms, and it's where we advertise to all the communities where we serve that we're collecting goods at charter schools. There are different places to drop goods off for women in disadvantaged women in homes that have been abused, so they could leave slippers, lotion, things like that. And then our movers go to each of these collection areas, collect all the items, and then take them to homeless shelters on Mother's Day. And that's called Movers for Moms. But the beautiful thing that has come out of that, the movers love to do this. And a lot of them do it with their volunteer time, picking up the items for these moms. And taking care of these moms in the homeless shelters gives them self-confidence that the community still cares about them, and just kind of gives them hope, that there's a brighter future ahead. So that's a new thing we're just starting and very, very excited about.
That's fantastic. When you guys are at like a franchise show, Melanie, 2 Men and a Truck Rider franchise show, and someone were to come up to your booth and they say, the typical question is always like, so, what do you do? What's the typical response?
In the olden days, it may have been, we're a moving company, but we're not a moving company. We're so much
I thought
more.
It was a little deeper than
and
that.
Not sound egotistical, but for me to go from pharmaceutical sales to a moving company, the reason I fell in love with moving and what I share in trade show booths that I work often is that you're providing exceptional customer service at a time when people are in great need. So we're a customer service company that happens to have moving as its venue. But what I've learned over the years is that people that are moving, it's usually a traumatic or sad time in their life. It's usually due to a divorce, which is horrible. It's due to a death in the family, downsizing, and people are very, very emotional about leaving their home, and they have all their possessions. Even if it's a happy thing, like a marriage or people are coming together, moving is stressful. So we take our training very, very seriously at 2 Men and a Truck, and our hiring. We hire for attitude, and then we train the skill. But we want our movers to show up on time, clean trucks, in uniform, be upbeat, understand that the customer is going to be stressed out, and make everything as stress-free as possible. And that, Marty, I think the reason for our success is because we are customer-centric. Our eyes are on the customer. We're not doing what's best for Mary Ellen, the founder, any family member or franchisee. Everyone in our company knows that we want to do the best thing for the customer. And if it's something that can be rolled out, an idea that can be rolled out nationwide, we cut out all the bureaucracy too. Let's get that idea out there, anything we can do to better serve. And if there's a damage or anything, we pride ourselves in rushing in and taking care of that right away, and impressing the customer with that we care. We don't want to leave you, troubled. Every business has its issues, and anyway, we try to take care of ours and just exceed our customers' expectations all the time. And because of that, customers tell people, I had a good experience with 2 Men and a Truck, and that's where all of our business, the majority of it, comes from. It's word of mouth. So we have to take customer service very seriously.
Well, it's well said. You said the workers and the franchisees, Melanie, they hire for like attitude and skill. What do you look for in your franchisees then? Like what type of characteristics or skills are you looking for?
We do like people with some business experience. We do have core values that they really need to believe in because we live them here. They're not just on a poster on the wall, but they have to have that caring attitude because we're in the service industry. Give back to the community is just a huge thing that we live out throughout the year. Integrity goes without saying, so we do criminal and financial background checks because we just want the best people in our system. And we have something called the grandma rule. It's one of our core values, and that is to treat everyone as if it were your grandma with dignity, respect, and patience. And our movers really get that one. And be your best and have fun. And inclusion. We include all people from all backgrounds of life. Okay, those are our core values. So we're looking for franchisees that believe in those. And we're also, skill set-wise, we're looking for someone that has skill in one of the following areas, either operational management or some financial experience or some marketing experience. Whoever we speak with, believe me, we have people, we have doctors, we have appliance repairmen, we have nurses, we have teachers, we have everyone you can imagine in our system. But we also think it's very key that they realize their weaknesses and hire against those. Me, for example, am horrible with numbers. Horrible. So, I would need to hire an accountant to explain things to me. But it's just understanding where you're weak. And but the other thing we're looking for in a really good franchisee is someone that knows how to follow a process. Because that's what franchising is. It's full of processes. There is no favoritism. Everything's about numbers. And, we want to treat everyone as fairly as we can, but we're pretty strict about letting people in because if they don't get the process part, they'll just be miserable. And we look at it as a marriage. So our agreements are 5 years long, and we want to make sure we marry people that are excited about our system and understand our culture and know how we work. So they'll be so much happier. So.
Wow. That's well said. Well, once you decide that it's a match, Melanie, and they like you, you like them, and they decide to go forward with a two-man and truck franchise, what's the training like from there? How does that work? Do they come to headquarters or?
Yes. Once they sign the agreement, then they come in for a 2-week training session, and it's really neat. It's here in Lansing, Michigan, and if your listeners go online, they can see pictures of our Stickman University. We have a beautiful training facility with computers where we teach our Movers Who Care scheduling program. We also have a 2-story house in our building, and it's 1,100 square feet. It's fully furnished, has a washer and dryer, dishes, completely furnished. And we also have a 26-foot truck box in the building with a plexiglass side. And it's pretty neat. The final day of training, it's a simulated move. So we make it tough on the franchisee because we want them to be prepared when they go out in the real world. But they will have the problem customer call them, maybe movers not showing up. So, and then they've got to, we actually send movers over, and they've got to go through how to load the truck. And because we're teaching them things that they'll teach their movers. The good thing is we know that these are business people coming in, learning how our business system works for 2 weeks, but we have so much training for the movers and the move managers. We have webinars, we have annual conventions, we have a certification program, we have online training, we have manuals, we have franchise business consultants that go out that are specifically trained to help the first-year franchisee. Because at Two-Man Truck, we know as a system, our success is based on every single franchisee's success. So we're looking at their profitability. We just get out there, and the quicker they learn and are up to speed, it's better for everyone. So, we have a laser-like focus on training and helping that franchisee and being responsive to them.
Wow,
and the other
it's amazing.
thing I'll add that is unique compared to other franchisors, and believe me, I mentor several emerging franchisors, and I share this advice with everyone. We share all our numbers. So, and we've done it since day one because my mom didn't know people didn't do that. So she just showed everyone's numbers. And now we've got it in real time. So people can get online, look at each other's sales numbers, daily sales numbers, all their expenses, because we're all on the same chart of accounts. You know, like how are they getting labor so low? You know, where are they getting their fuel for their trucks? Wow. And they can look at their neighbors, you know, like I think I'm doing all the business I can. Then they look at Sally next door. Her numbers are skyrocketing. It takes away that glass feeling of, oh, this is the best I can do. It's like, well, she can do that. I can do that. So it's transparency, which builds trust. And all of our awards are based that way, too, on a numbers criteria where people can go in and see, you know. In other words, rather than giving our awards just based on sales numbers, we have a balanced scorecard approach. So we measure, you know, are people out speaking to elected officials? How much community service are they doing? How much training are they getting? All of these things are scored. And then at the end of the year, our top achievers go on a wonderful trip. We all go as a group. And like last year we went to Switzerland. This year we went to Napa Valley. So we have a meeting on the trip. And they're called the Leaders in Excellence. So we base a lot on recognition here at Two Men in the Truck, too. And just try to keep it fun, upbeat and fun.
It sounds like it. And it sounds like a real type of family type of franchise system, too. You know, and again, I've done a lot of these interviews over time, but I mean, the way you're describing it, it must be an amazing feeling for you, Melanie, and your mom and your family, you know, to just see, you know, where the company, because you were there at the beginning, and where it is now today, and what you've done, you know, for people's lives, you know, is creating all these different franchisees. What does that feel like for you?
It just feels so amazing and wonderful, and we look back and pinch ourselves. There's been a lot of evolution, and I think the blessing in all this as a family is we've had to evolve with the changes, and we had legacy management for many, many years, and then we had to transition to executive management, which was difficult to change all those people to get us to the next level. So we've had different bumps that we've had to, and challenges that we've had to overcome, but to stay alive and relevant and to be the best for our customers, you have to change, you know, especially with all that's gone on with computers and everything. I'd say right now our biggest challenge is helping people to understand that the moving business is very, very lucrative. If you work hard, I mean, it's not easy, but there's just so much opportunity. And going into January, our focus is going to be in the D.C. area and the East Coast markets. And just for any listeners out there that are curious, just to look into it. The nice thing about Two Men in a Truck is it's scalable. So when people are ready to go or grow, they add a truck, add a truck, add a truck. And then if, depending on what the economy is doing, then you could take a truck out if you had to. Whereas with other franchise systems, you usually have to add a store, add a location.
That's true.
So it's just another beautiful thing. I'm using every second of your time I can to encourage people to think about this business as an opportunity.
It's an amazing opportunity. And, you know, I guess I could officially call you an expert. I know that I believe you are a certified franchise expert. And one of the questions we've been asking on the show, Melanie, for the last 6 years is, you know, what advice would you give to our listeners? We call them aspiring franchipreneurs. You know, so many of them know they want to get into a franchise opportunity, but it seems, I don't know, it seems a little more difficult today because there's just so much out there. And I think a lot of our listeners, they just simply don't know where to begin. I think they get a little overwhelmed. What would you say to them as an expert in franchising?
I would look at the concept and think about who the audience is that you'll be working with. Because no matter what product or service it is. It's not really the product or service. It's who you're delivering to. And, is this an audience that you could be comfortable with? I guess that would be the first thing I would look at. Second, are there unit economics? Third, is this a fad? Is it going to be around 10 years from now? Fourth, how expensive is it to get involved? Are you going to be able to get a loan for it? Five, is it going to be difficult to learn this product or service, or will it be pretty easy to learn and teachable to others? Also look for state regulations. Is there a location available in your city or state? Are there special regulations toward that product or service? Because a lot of products and services are regulated, and I'll tell you moving is. But the biggest thing your listeners can do is call as many, once they receive the permission, call as many of the franchisees in that system that they can. And a couple red flags, if you get the FDD from a company and there is not an item number 19, and that shows average numbers that the franchisees make, that's a red flag, and find out why they don't have that in their FDD. Secondly, when the prospect does receive permission to call franchisees and they give you a very short list, that's a red flag. And it'd be nice, 2-Minute Truck, we give all of our franchisees, even people that have left the system, because we want that prospect to call as many people as possible. And if they say, I would never do this, I made a big mistake, then the prospect should ask, well, you sound disappointed, would you do it all over again? And if they say never, then it might be good for the prospect to say, then would you be willing to sell your location? The truth will bubble up in that answer. And then keep in mind, if we, it's not often this happens, but if we had a prospect called 2 Men in a Truck, and they said, we talked to this franchisee and they don't like the way you do things, then we would probably say, you know what, you won't be happy in our system then, because that is how we do things. So I think for a prospect, they're going to get a bulk of their education by checking references. Very, 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 very important.
Wow, that's a great question. I never heard that before, in all the years I've been studying franchising is, if someone said, they never would have got into it again, then you say, well, would you sell me yours? And they said no. That would be like, well, okay, I never thought of that. I mean, that's very clever. I had a feeling your response would be, nothing less than spectacular. It's fantastic. So I know that you're looking to grow towards like the East Coast. But I guess if you're looking, 3 to 5 years down the road, is there anything else, like what are the other future plans for 2 Men in a Truck, Melanie?
We're focused on the East, but I must say we're focused on the West. And my niece, Alicia Sorbert, she is the third generation. She's only 26. She started a franchise in San Diego, and her grand opening was last week. We're just definitely spreading to the East Coast, the West Coast. We have a wonderful new IT system, just like a $10 million renovation to our IT that's rolling out right now. And we're just looking at ways to better serve our customers with backhauls and different ways of making our franchisees more profitable. But our focus right now is still on the U.S. It's residential and commercial moving, long distance as well. And then, of course, we'll be looking to go more global. I mean, we're global now, but we still have a lot of work to do in the U.S. And then we'll just expand from there. We are the 5th largest moving company in the U.S., and we just want to be number 1 at customer service in moving, not only in service, moving services, but just we want to be very, very well thought of and a household name to our customers. And getting back to the community, we'll always stay up there at the very top of the list.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Melanie. This has been a wonderful interview, and I've mentioned several times, we've been doing the show now 6 years, and this has certainly been one of my favorite interviews to do. So I'm so glad that I finally had a chance to speak with you. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on becoming a Two Men on a Truck franchisee? Are there any websites they should go to, any numbers they should call that you want to give out?
Yes. Well, first, can I say thank you is an honor. An absolute honor to be on your 300th show and on your 6th-year anniversary. It's just a blessing.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to hear more or learn more about Two Men in a Truck, they can just go to twomeninatruck or twomen.com, TWOMEN, and our 1-800 number is 1-800-345-1070. But if they go online, they will learn so much about us, and they can call me or email me, and I love to answer franchising questions as well. So,
and you can hear your passion in talking about the company too, and I guess that has a lot to do with you being there from the beginning too, but it's very refreshing to talk to someone like yourself, and someone who's just so passionate about this business. I can tell that you have fun every day at work, and you're probably going to do this a very long time.
Thanks, Marty. I do love franchising. It's kind of,
you can tell. You can hear it in your voice, which is again one of the great reasons we love having people like you on the show. It's fantastic. So I want to thank you again, Melanie. It's been wonderful to speak with you, and hopefully, we don't have to wait 6 years to have you on the show next time. I'd like to, give you all a call and maybe have some of your franchisees on the show next year, and just continue to watch you grow. It's a wonderful, amazing story in franchising, I think.
I would love to have our franchisees on. Yes, you too. Thank you, Marty.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Franchise Interviews. For over 6 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. And today's podcast is being brought to you by Franchise Times Magazine. Franchise Times is the only magazine that targets both franchisors and multi-unit franchisees, and is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise. Don and I have been hosting Franchise Interviews now over 4 years and over 200 shows, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes on our show. The nice thing about hosting Franchise Interviews is we're frequently asked to be guests on radio shows and magazine interviews on the topics of entrepreneurship and franchising. And today you're going to get to hear an interview that we did 6 months ago on CBS Radio with Lynn Johnson on her motivational talk show. And of course the topic was entrepreneurship and franchising. And here's what we said. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Hey, did you ever think about buying a franchise? Do you think that now is the worst time to buy one? Or you're not sure whether anyone would loan you money to purchase a franchise? How does the whole thing work? Well, let's find out. We have an expert on the line, Marty McDermott.
Hi, Coach Lynn. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's always great to talk to you. I always feel like it's a World Talk reunion, right? We get together.
I know. We started out, guys, a very long time ago. I think we're some of the only people left, aren't we?
I know. It's amazing, isn't it? But and it seems like yesterday that we started, Lynn.
It really does.
It's just incredible. But it's the success that you've had is just wonderful to watch, though. I mean, it's just incredible.
Thank you so much. And yours has been pretty fantastic. Marty, just over the break, when I announced that you were going to be here talking about franchises, I got a tweet from Alice and a lot of other people, but I selected Alice's tweet.
Oh, good.
Because she says that her family has owned the same bagel shop for over 35 years.
Wow.
But now they're going to have to close because the business has slowed and their debts are too high. She wonders if setting up her own franchises could save their business. So, Marty, I know you're an expert and you host that wonderful show called Franchise Interviews on Blog Talk Radio.
That's right.
Are franchises for everyone?
Oh, great question, Lynn. It's a deep question, and definitely not. In fact, you know what? If I can quote my friend Dr. John P. Hayes, franchising is not for everyone, and it's probably not for most people. And when I say that, you know, the first time I heard that phrase, Lynn, I was a little confused because I said, if franchising isn't for everyone and it's not for most people, then who could it be for? You know, it's but franchising is really for someone who knows how to follow rules, follow systems. They're not a true entrepreneur. When I say that, sometimes franchisees get upset because they say, "What are you talking about?" I consider myself an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is really the person that actually creates the franchise opportunity. And you know, when you're talking about franchisors or entrepreneurs, they're really, and you know this, Lynn, they're very creative people. Mm-hmm. You know, they can look at something.
I could never follow rules, Marty.
Exactly, and they could just create something out of anything. You know, franchisees, and it was funny because I was in Virginia, George Mason University, on Friday talking about this topic. And one of the topics I was talking about was military being good candidates for franchises because they know how to follow a system, you know. So you really have to know how to follow a system, like to follow rules. And if you can't do that, then it's probably not for you. And so, yeah, it's always a word of caution before getting into franchising.
Now, I know that you say that there are two key factors that should be present before you consider buying a franchise. What are those factors?
Well, it depends. There's a lot of different things. I mean, one is, what do you want the franchise to do for you? And, you know, for example, I'll give you an example. I like Dunkin' Donuts. You know, I frequent Dunkin' Donuts probably several times a week. And as much as I like Dunkin' Donuts and the coffee and the donuts, I wouldn't be a good franchisee for that type of system, because when you buy into a Dunkin' Donuts, you're working some pretty hefty hours.
True.
You know? So one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, what's important to you? You know, you're really taking a deep assessment. And for me, you know, my family is most important to me. So if I wasn't, you know, with my family or my son, like if he has a baseball game one day or whatever it is, I'm going to get very frustrated, even if I'm making a lot of money. You know, so you want to ask yourself, what do you want this franchise to do for you, and you know, what kind of system is the best match for you? There's so many choices out there today, Lynn. I mean, there's like 80 different industries franchising. Yeah, a lot of people, when they just think of franchising, they just think of food, but it's actually up to about 80 different industries. There's accounting franchises, there's advertising franchises, there's shoe repair franchises, you name it. It seems like they have it, you know. So you really have to ask yourself, you know, what's the best match for you? It's a lot of research. And, you know, of course you come down to the financials, too. And, you know, I mean, you know, McDonald's, as successful as it is, it's almost a home run every single time you have a McDonald's franchise. I can't afford one, you know, so the financial aspects are always a big factor as well. I think to go even deeper, I think you need family support. I think that's important as well, you know. I mean, if you're married, I think you have to have that support from your husband or your wife before you get into an opportunity as well, because you're taking them along for the ride with you.
I love that you said that, Marty.
Absolutely.
Do you know what you said? You said you need the support from your husband, which would infer that a woman could easily go in and buy a franchise. I love that.
Absolutely. Well, you know, you can see the influence my wife has on me too, I guess. She's got me trained, Lynn, you know, and she's a fan of your show, by the way, too, you know, so you can tell I listen, you know, but absolutely. But it's so true. And, you know, speaking of women, Lynn, I mean, they really do make fantastic entrepreneurs, you know. I mean, it's amazing. I think for the first time, you know, I teach for Kaplan University.
Yes.
And we have, in colleges, for the first time, there's more women in college today than there are men.
And they're older as well.
They're older, you know. So what does that say to you, you know, is there's a lot of exciting trends that are taking place here in the United States, so.
Now, I wanted to ask you about this because I know that they just announced that even Ritz Camera is going to be closing many, many, many of their stores, and I'm kind of heartbroken about that because I'm an amateur professional photographer. But my question is, so how do you know if the franchise that you're interested in is even going to be around in the next 5 years?
Wow, it's a great question, and nothing is ever 100% certain. I will say this, that not all franchises are created equal, and what you can do is, look at the company's track record for one. One of the things that you can look at is their franchise disclosure documents, and look at the history of the company. Some companies that just started franchising, they haven't really been around very long, so you're kind of taking a chance in a way. And you can look at how many franchisees they have and things like that. I think there's certain franchises that are always going to be around. I think McDonald's will always be here. They have like 33,000 units. Subway has about 33,000 units. So those ones are pretty safe. It's almost a home run every single time. So there is always that element of risk involved, even when you are buying into a franchise system. Of course, you can look at things like the market and things like that and kind of make your own assessments, but
so, Marty, with all that you know, because I have 1 minute left, and I definitely want them to come and listen to you, because I love your show on Blog Talk Radio.
Thanks so much, Lynn.
And I want them to check out your work. It's very, very important. Are franchises still a viable option, even with this economic downturn?
Most definitely. I think, Lynn, and this is going to sound a little weird, is, one of the interesting effects of the recession I see now is some of the best offers in franchising.
Interesting.
And I've been doing this 10 years now. I'll give you a couple quick examples. Some franchisers, what they're doing is they're reducing or dropping a franchise fee for their new franchisees. Now, that's pretty significant because a franchise fee usually goes for about $30,000, $40,000. So they're waiving that. In some cases, there's 2-for-1 deals where if you buy one franchise, they'll drop the franchise fee for the second one.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so it's really, and that's the effect that I've noticed from the recession is really some incredible deals. Even the landlords right now, and you've noticed there's a lot of great locations available right now.
Yes.
I think, you want to get those locations because, a great location can really overcome bad marketing, and there's going to be a lot of people kicking themselves next year. They're going to say, I should have got into that opportunity last year when they waived the franchise fee, when I could have got this killer location in this particular spot. And, landlords are sometimes more willing to give a great lease to a franchise as opposed to, let's say, Tony Subs, who's just like a regular guy.
So somewhere Tony's saying, hey!
Exactly. Tony's upset. But, so they're really getting some incredible deals right now. I think that this is the most exciting time to get into franchising. But again, to quote you, Lynn, franchising isn't for everyone. It's not for most people. You do have to really do your homework. It's not guaranteed every single time. And, not all franchises are really created equal. There are some that are better than others.
Well, Marty, it's a pleasure to hear your voice and talk to you again.
Lynn. It's a pleasure to hear your
voice,
too.
Where can
I think you're great.
Thank you. I love you, too.
Thanks, Coach Lynn.
Where can my people hear you, do business with you, and all those wonderful things?
Absolutely. Go to franchiseinterviews.com. You can hear I think we're up to 160 shows, Lynn, recorded up to this point. Yeah, so it really, when I say that number, it just really it tickles my spine because I didn't think that there was going to be a market for this or we'd find like a listening base for it. But, every single month we have more listeners just like you, So I haven't quite achieved your success yet, but someday.
Well, thank you so much, Marty. And go check him out. Franchise Interviews on Blog Talk Radio, my dear old friend from World Talk Radio.
Thanks
Marty
so much, Lynn. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, prosper.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. That was a wonderful show, and we'll see you next week with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising and Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.